Trust company. For those of you guys who don't know me, my name is Haley Gant. I am one of our certified IRA specialists here at Quest, and I work pretty closely with our entire marketing team to help put these events on for you guys pretty much every single week. So I am super excited to have with us today Tom Berry, the owner of Investor Loan Source, and he is going to be talking today about some of the different options you have of investing with an IRA and maybe some of the pros and cons of the different investment types. So before we get started, I do just have a couple of quick slides for you guys, just to kind of let you know who we are at Quest, how we can be of value to you, and some of our upcoming events and promotions that we have going on right now as well. So quick little just commercial about who is Quest, and sorry if you hear dogs barking in the background, the joys of working from home these days, but hopefully you guys can't hear that like I can. Anyways, who is Quest Trust? We are the largest self-directed IRA custodian in the state of Texas, but we do work with clients pretty much all across the US. So physically, our offices are in Houston, Austin, and Dallas, but we do operate in all 50 states, and we work with clients from pretty much all across the United States. We do hold about $2 billion in assets under management, and that is all alternative assets that our clients choose to hold in their IRAs at Quest. So one really big thing that sets Quest apart from other IRA custodians out there is really the types of assets that we allow you to invest in with your IRA. So most custodians like Fidelity, Charles Schwab, E-Trade, they are only set up to allow you to hold publicly traded assets, things like stocks, mutual funds, other types of securities in your retirement account. Where at Quest, we actually allow our clients to truly diversify their IRAs by teaching you guys how to invest those IRAs into non-traditional assets, such as real estate. So we do that all day, every day. We actually fund about 400 investments a month. So we are very well versed in all of the different types of assets that you can hold here at Quest. So we are a pretty good sized company, but we are kind of homegrown here in the state of Texas. It's a family run business. If you guys know Quincy and Nathan, who are actually on the background of this slide, they do a really great job at running our company, really focusing in on our employees. And in turn, that helps us focus on our clients and really provide a lot of great education, customer service. It allows us to fund deals very quickly for you. So if you are interested in learning any more about this, be sure to reach out to us. I will have our contact information here at the end of my few slides here. But this right here is so, so important. This is our disclaimer. Please be aware that Quest Trust Company does not give tax, legal, or investment advice. We give a lot of education about self-directed IRAs, various investment topics that you can actually hold in an IRA, but all of our presentations are strictly for educational purposes only. We don't give tax, legal, or investment advice, and we definitely encourage you to consult with professionals before entering into deals. So what is a self-directed IRA? I kind of already told you here on my last slide. And again, I am so sorry if you guys hear dogs barking right now, but that's all right. So there is no legal distinction between the IRAs that we hold at Quest and an IRA that you might find at any other custodian. There is no legal difference. The only difference is the types of assets that your IRA custodian allows you to invest in. So some of the reasons why we are so passionate about teaching Americans about self-directed IRAs is because it allows you to truly diversify your retirement portfolio. And it also allows you to shelter some of your real estate investments from your own income taxes and capital gains taxes. One of the really awesome things about investing with an IRA is that anything that grows in your IRA grows completely tax deferred or tax free. So you could potentially buy a rental property in an IRA and never pay any income tax or capital gains taxes. If you say hold that rental property in your IRA for 30 years and it triples in value, since it's in your IRA, it is tax sheltered. So a lot of great advantages there. And last but not least, you guys are here on a webinar learning about real estate investing. You might as well use these skills and this knowledge that you have about real estate and maybe promissory notes to invest your IRA into the things that you are knowledgeable about. I can pretty much guarantee you, you're probably going to make more money investing into things that you are passionate about and that you are educated in than just letting someone else kind of take control of your money. And then hopefully by the time you hit retirement, hopefully at that point it's enough. But a lot of times we found meeting with people that it's really not. So we really do love to teach about all of these different topics as well as all of the different types of investments that you can hold in an IRA. Now, this slide right here, this is so important. In a lot of our presentations, we actually spend about 30 minutes on this one slide alone because the types of accounts that can be self-directed, as you can see, there are 7 of them on the screen here. To really maximize your IRA investments, it is so important to have a good understanding of the types of accounts that can be self-directed, which ones might be best for you, and the different types of accounts that you can have between both you and your immediate family. So we see a lot of people that roll their funds over from a 401k. Those funds most times will roll over into a traditional IRA without any tax implications. But you do also have the ability to self direct a Roth IRA, which grows completely tax free. If you are self employed, you do qualify for these plans in the middle. They allow for much higher contribution limits, potentially up to $58,000 that you can put into one of these plans in the middle from your own personal funds if you are self employed. And last but not least, these specialty accounts, these are really awesome because they can be self-directed just like all of our other IRAs at Quest, but the money can actually be used today completely tax-free to pay for your qualified health expenses and your children's qualified educational expenses. So to really understand which types of accounts might be best for you, I definitely recommend setting up a free consultation with one of our IRA specialists. It is always free to talk to us and pick our brains and kind of let us help to at least point you in the right direction. Again, we can't tell you how to structure your deals, but our staff goes through a lot of internal education at Quest, especially anyone who has that title of a certified IRA specialist. Our role is to basically help walk you through this process A to Z and kind of help you understand how everything works. Now, these are just a few of the many different investment options that you have with an IRA. Really important to note here, you get to choose your deals. You get to choose how they're structured, what types of investments you want to do in your IRA, whether you want to hold real estate, or maybe you want to be a little bit more passive and passively invest into multifamily deals, or maybe be a private lender or purchase existing notes. You have all of these different options. It's totally up to you. And we do bring in a lot of different guest speakers to teach about all of these various different investment topics that you can do with an IRA. Now, that's the commercial stuff about Quest. We always like to do that in the beginning, just because we have noticed that we get a lot of new people joining us at all of our webinars. So if it's your first time joining us, be sure to pop into the chat. Let us know. Let us know where you're watching from. I do have Sarah online moderating with us today. I'm sure she's probably already prompting you guys with some of those questions and some of our useful links that we have as well. So this class is just one of many events that we host at Quest. We have almost endless resources for you when it comes to self-directed IRA education and the ability to meet other investors as well. So in today's world, we're not going to as many in-person RIAs as we used to. There's some conferences are starting back up, but there's not just as many out there as there were before 2020. So if you guys are looking to network with other investors, join me at our virtual networking happy hour. We host it twice a month on the first and third Wednesday. And this is a great place to meet other investors, find deals, find places to put your money, maybe. It's totally up to you. Again, do your own due diligence. But this is a really nice platform, and we get about 50 to 70 investors from across the US at every virtual happy hour that we host. We actually had about 60 people online with us last night. But it's a great event. A lot of people have been joining multiple times. There's a lot of new people joining. So no matter what your skill set is, there's definitely some great connections to be made at these virtual happy hours. And our big event that we have coming up this spring, we have brought back QuestCon Live. It is our online self-directed IRA conference. And our next QuestCon will be April 16th and 17th. It's a Friday, Saturday, completely online. Tickets are on sale now. It is $50 to attend Or if you want the live event access plus the recording of all of the presentations, it is a slight upcharge for that, comes out to about $69 for you. And tickets are in pre-sale right now through March 15th. Now, if you want to attend QuestCon for free and you have been maybe putting off setting up that consultation or opening up your account, I would definitely encourage you to maybe take advantage of this promotion that we have going on right now through the end of this week. It is pretty limited, so I would encourage you guys, if you are interested in this, go ahead and shoot us an email. Use the promo code QCL bundle. That way we know that you came from this class. But go ahead and take your phone out, send us a quick email if you're interested in setting up a consultation with an IRA specialist with our little bundle promotion that we have going on right now. When you open up an IRA, you will get a free ticket to QuestCon. You will get a free copy of the recording of the event as well. And actually, Sarah, big shout out to you. Sarah writes all of our articles, all of our blog posts, all of our ebooks. She is fantastic at her job and super happy to help her doing that because I know I could not do it. But we have a new ebook. It features several different case studies, and you will get this as well if you would like to take advantage of this QCL bundle. Now, how to get in touch with us? It is so easy to get in touch with an IRA specialist. We have a live chat feature through our website where if you log on to questtrust.com, you can actually chat live with an IRA specialist at any time throughout our normal business hours. Give us a call. We don't have any automated phone lines, super easy to get a hold of us. And, send us an email. Or in today's day and age, I know QR codes are super popular, especially since no one wants to touch paper anymore. But if you scan this QR code, you can put in your contact information and we'll have an IRA specialist reach out to you before the end of the day. Whether you are looking for more resources, whether you're ready to open up an account, or if you just want to learn a little bit more, maybe answer some questions that maybe aren't quite cleared up yet, reach out to us, scan the QR code, send us an email. We are more than happy to help. And we don't make commissions off of our clients' investments. So we are truly here to help you understand how this whole process works. And then you ultimately get to make your own decisions from there as far as which route you would like to go. But we are here to help facilitate the process and educate you about the steps along the way. That way it makes everything a smooth and easy process for you. So that's about all that I have. Let me stop sharing my screen really quick. And let's go ahead and bring on Tom Barry. So I am super excited to have Tom here with us today. Tom is a resident guest speaker here with us at Quest. You see him on a lot of our events, and he is the owner of Investor Loan Source. So Tom, thank you so much for joining us here today. Guys, if you have questions throughout the presentation, put them in the Q&A box, and we'll come back on at the end and Tom will get them answered for you. Tom, thanks for joining us today. The floor is yours for about the next hour, and I'm excited to hear what you've brought for us today. Oh, Tom, it looks like you might be frozen. Stay tuned, give him a nice little drum roll. Tom, are you there? All right, guys, I'm not sure if you froze. Juan, I'm not sure if there's a way you can help out with this or not. Stay tuned, guys. We are just building the anticipation. While we're waiting for Tom to come back, oh, there he is. Never mind.
There you are. We got cut off for a second, Haley.
Hey, no worries.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm not sure if your internet connection is stable.
Can you hear me okay?
We can now. It's a little choppy, but we could hear you, yeah.
Okay. All right. Let me do a screen share here and see if I can get this to work. Okay. Can you see the screen okay?
We can see it. We can hear you. You are good to go.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And thank you everybody for tuning in today to the Quest Trust webinar. And my name is Tom Barry. I have been really full-time in real estate for, since 2007. However many years that is, I'm losing track now. And, I've done a lot of things in real estate, and now our biggest thing is lending. So we have a lending company, and we also rent space in the same building as Quest Trust. So we see each other quite a bit here in the halls and in the staircases. The things that I hear so often from investors is that they just don't know what to invest in. There are so many options out there for self-directed accounts. So I thought it'd be maybe helpful and useful to put together a presentation to go over some of the different options that people have for investing in real estate through their self-directed account. So first of all, of course, we got to go through the disclaimer like everybody does. This presentation is intended for educational purposes only and is not to be mistaken in any way for tax, legal, investment, or IRA advice. I will share what I think, but you should do your own due diligence and speak to the proper professionals to make sure that each of the things that you hear here that you might want to take action on are actually going to work for you. This is meant to inform you and educate you more than anything. I just want to get your brain moving and kind of enlighten you to some ideas so that you can start crunching on that a little bit mentally to see if it might work for you. This presentation is also not meant to be a solicitation for an investment of any kind. I'll actually get into later on why I need to make that disclaimer as well. So our agenda. Over the next 30 to 40 minutes, I'd like to cover some of the considerations, pros and cons of the following real estate investments that you could do in your self-directed account. Now, I'm going to use the word self-directed account a lot throughout this presentation. And in place of that, you could really fill in that self-directed account blank, if you will, with IRA, Roth IRA, SEP, Solo 401k, Coverdale, HSA, all of the accounts that Haley shared with you earlier in her slide presentation could be placed in place of self-directed account. So I don't really know what type of accounts you have or what type of accounts you need personally. So rather than just say IRA, I'm going to say self-directed account throughout the presentation. So the different types of investments that we're going to talk about are direct ownership. And I'm not going to really even talk about that one. It's so self-explanatory, but I did want to bring it in. I want to talk about a couple of considerations for that. Direct lending, indirect lending, syndications, and fund investing. So those are the things that I want to share with you over the next 30 minutes or so. So direct ownership, really one slide to this. What does direct ownership mean? It means your self-directed account owns a property. It could be any kind of property, and it could be any type of self-directed account. This is called direct ownership in your account or in your IRA. Right now, in this example, all the income and all the expenses belong to the IRA or your account, not you. I want to make that distinction because a lot of times people get a little sideways on this one, where they have, let's say, a rental property, like Haley had used the example earlier, in their IRA. Let's just call it a traditional IRA for a hypothetical. And expenses come up on this rental property, and the person just wants to go ahead and pay for those expenses out of their own pocket. Well, the challenge with that is that there could be some implications to doing that. That could be a prohibited transaction of sorts because the IRA owns that property, you don't. And by you paying for some of those bills out of your pocket, that could actually be looked at as a contribution to your IRA. So you want to just be careful and understand that if you have direct ownership of an asset, a physical asset, in your IRA or self-directed account, you want to make sure that the IRA or the self-directed account is paying those expenses. Likewise for the income. When the income comes in, you don't want that income coming to you. You want it going to Quest Trust so that it can go into the proper account for you. The other thing with IRAs is it may open you up to some legal risks. I know a lot of people shy away from owning real estate in their IRA because they don't want their IRA to be open to lawsuits, for example. Somebody gets hurt on the rental property, they're going to obviously sue the ownership of that property. And in this case, who is the owner? It's not you, it's the IRA. So that's something that is just a legal consideration that you should speak with an attorney about. The other thing, the tax consideration, there are some pros and cons to the tax considerations of having a physical asset in your IRA. Haley had mentioned one of the good ones, which is that you could be in a no tax situation, no capital gains, no income tax situation in the case of potentially a Roth IRA. On the flip side of that, you may not be able to use all the tax deductions that would be available if you owned it as an individual. So all of those are things that you really want to look at before you take direct ownership of a piece of property in your IRA. So that's pretty much all I want to talk about on direct ownership. I want to spend the rest of our time this afternoon on the other four. And the first of those four is direct lending. In talking to the Quest Trust folks, this is by far one of the larger assets that is held by Quest Trust clients, and that is direct lending, where, so let's describe it for you first, and this is simple. Your self-directed account makes a loan to a real estate investor borrower for a piece of real estate. That's direct lending. You are lending directly to that real estate investor. And that real estate investor is your borrower. They are the ones responsible for paying you for that loan. In this direct lending scenario, I want to talk about some of the cons to that first. Then we'll talk about some of the pros of it. So some of the lesser favorable things to direct lending out of a self-directed account is that you, the owner of that account, are going to have to do all the underwriting for that loan to make sure that three things are in line. First, you want to make sure that the borrower is suitable to lend money to. Second of all, you want to make sure that the property is suitable for you to lend on. And third of all, you want to make sure that the project that is going to be done, in other words, the scope of work that is going to be done on this project qualifies for your suitability for lending. This we call in the lending world underwriting. Underwriting a loan, meaning bringing in, gathering all the facts and saying, does this loan make sense for me to do? Now, I'm now a professional lender. We've done thousands and thousands of loans through our lending company. But I can tell you in the early days, I remember, the first few months we started our lending company, I was not a professional lender at all. And I did not have any idea what underwriting really meant. I didn't have any experience in it. I'm a real estate investor. That's what I have experience in. And I thought that, well, since I'm an investor, I should easily transition into lending. I will tell you from experience, it was not an easy transition because there are so many other considerations in underwriting a loan package to make sure, and to be quite honest with you, over the past 6 years of us having our lending company, our loan underwriting and our package itself has grown and grown and grown. Now, if you were to print out all the underwriting, all the due diligence that we do on a single loan, it would fill a 3-inch 3-ring binder. If you were not in the position to do a lot of due diligence, and if you are not in the position to understand how to do the due diligence on a loan like this, it may not make sense for you to be a direct lender. Another thing that you want to take into consideration, and this is not a big thing, but it's just something that I think most people don't think about, is that you will have to service the loan. So what does that mean? We hear that term, service the loan. What does that actually mean? Is it just collecting the payments? Well, yeah, that's part of it. You are going to have to collect the payments, but in your self-directed account, that's pretty easy because you're going to have those payments directly made to your Quest Trust account. So Quest is really going to be collecting the payments. That's not what we're talking about when we're talking about servicing. Servicing the loan means staying on top of things to make sure that the insurance doesn't lapse on the property. That property is your collateral. And you want to make sure that the insurance doesn't lapse. Now, we have, at any one given time, hundreds and hundreds of loans on the books at our lending company. And I can tell you from experience that our servicing manager constantly finds loans that are on the books where insurance has not been paid in a timely manner. So he has to reach out to the borrower and try to get them on track. The same way with taxes. Along around property tax season, we call it, when all the property taxes are to be paid, there is always a certain percentage of these loans that the property taxes are not paid in a timely manner. Servicing just means staying on top of those things. Now, if you are lending on a fix and flip loan, which is very typical for self-directed accounts to lend on, it's going to be a shorter term loan. This is going to create another servicing issue for you that you want to be aware of. And that is you're going to need to stay on top of the project to make sure that as they are asking for draw money to cover the rehab expenses that they have incurred, that those rehab items have indeed been completed and that they have been indeed completed correctly, and that if permitted, the city permits have been pulled and that the city inspections have been done and they've been green tagged or passed. You don't really want to be releasing rehab money out of your IRA to this loan, to this borrower, until these repairs have been done and done correctly. And correctly means past inspection if it's an inspectable item. So not a big issue, but you do have to understand that if you're going to direct lend, you want to make sure that you're in a position to service this loan and stay on top of it. The other thing is you may, and again, I'm giving you all these worst case scenarios, but there is a certain percentage. Again, law of large numbers, over a certain percentage of loans, you will have people let their insurance lapse. Over a certain big number of loans, you'll have a certain percentage that won't pay their taxes or that won't do the repairs correctly. You'll also have a certain percentage that you'll have to foreclose on. And you have to be okay with that before you do a direct lending loan. You just have to be, because a certain percentage are going to go that direction. Again, that shouldn't dissuade you from doing it, but you need to have all the facts before you go into it. If you do have to foreclose on the loan, then your self-directed account is in direct ownership of the real estate. So we're right back up to the first slide where you went from direct lender to direct owner. And in this case, you're either going to have to finish the project yourself or have it finished rather for you or for your IRA, and then dispose of the property or sell it as is. These are some of the things that scare self-directed IRA owners from lending. And they shouldn't. They shouldn't scare you. You should just be aware of them. And before you do your first direct lending loan, just have a plan. If this happens, what will my course of action be? If that happens, what will my course of action be? Now, look, from 5 or 6 years of experience in lending, I could have filled 15 slides of what ifs. things that could go wrong. But these are certainly the major ones that you should at least have your eyes wide open to before you go into this type of scenario. Another thing that I want to do is, at this point, I want to introduce a term called yield leakage. Yield leakage. When you're direct lending, you have the potential for heavy yield leakage. What does that mean? Well, let's use a hypothetical. Let's say you went to a Quest Trust event, online or otherwise, and you met the nicest guy you ever met. And he's doing some real estate deals. He's fixing, flipping, and he needs money. You've got capital in your self-directed account, and you decide to lend. And let's also hypothetically say that this person to pay you, I pull a number out of the air. Oh my goodness, 12% interest. That's phenomenal. I can't get that kind of interest anywhere. Well, that may look great on the outside, and it may look like you're actually earning a 12% return. But let's also hypothetically say that this loan pays off in 3 months, and that money goes back into your Quest account, and it's another 3 months before he needs, or anybody else needs, that money for their next project. That 3 months that the money was sitting in your Quest account uninvested is called yield leakage. In other words, you were not earning any money, any interest on it for those 3 months that it sat. And in our hypothetical, if you were charging 12% annually and it's sitting in your account for 3 months, you're now only earning an annualized yield of 9% on your money. The difference between what you could have earned, which is 12 if it were invested for the full 12 months, and what you actually earned, which is 9, is called yield leakage. You've leaked 3% out of your account. Now, there are other investment options that we're going to talk about that don't have the potential for that yield leakage. It's just something that most people don't think about, and I think they should. One of the great things about direct lending is that 12% or 10, or shoot, there are people out there that are new, don't have any experience, and they'd probably easily pay 15% for the money. Understand though, risk equals rate. If somebody is willing to pay you a very high interest rate, chances are they are a high risk, or their project is, one or the other. And in a worst case scenario, both are high risk, the project and them personally. So understand that, yes, you can charge high interest rates, you can charge extra fees and so forth for doing these loans, but there certainly are some downsides to it as well. Indirect lending. This is the next one I want to hit. And this one is a little unique, and it has a twist to what we just talked about. In this indirect lending scenario, your self-directed account is lending money to a professional lending company like ours, and there's many others around town. Then that company makes the loans to the real estate investors. Now, what's the downside to indirect lending? Well, the biggest downside to indirect lending is that you may be able to make more by direct lending. If you were really good at it and you kept that money out on the street consistently and didn't have a lot of yield drag or yield leakage, as we called it, you could potentially make more by direct lending and doing all the work yourself, as opposed to indirect lending and going through a professional lending company. Okay, that just makes sense. Now, but the pros or the good parts about indirect lending is that you have a company that is signing for the loan with you and your account, right? In other words, if you came to me and said, Tom, could you use some money? And we talked and made sure that that was a suitable situation for both of us, our company would be signing for the loan with you, not our borrowers. And then what we would do is we would take that money and we would use it to make loans to our borrowers, and we would do all the underwriting on those loans. The other thing that would happen is if our borrower didn't pay us, we would still be paying your account. So your IRA or your self-directed account would consistently be receiving income regardless of whether our loan with our borrower was good or bad. And then, of course, you would not have to worry about the servicing issues, and you would not have to worry about foreclosing on an end borrower, because if our end borrower stops paying us, we're going to immediately take action and handle that. So those are some of the pros to indirect lending. And the other thing too is with indirect lending, there's very little to no yield leakage, because let's just say hypothetically the loan that you were lending on paid us off, we would just immediately try to find you another loan to participate with us in. So there may be little yield leakage, or in the case of a longer term loan, maybe none at all. The next one is syndications. Now, this one is a little bit different. Hopefully, I'll be able to explain it in a way that's easier for folks to understand. This is where more than one person or self-directed accounts pool their money together to buy an asset. So it's typically lots of investors, but one asset. A good example of this is an apartment complex. My wife and I, back in 2011 and 12, we bought quite a few apartment complexes. And this was one of the strategies that we used on several of the larger complexes. We would pool together some of our friends that had self-directed accounts through Quest Trust, and we would have 5 or 6 or 8 people and maybe multiple accounts per person, and we pooled all that money together to buy an apartment complex. We were the lead investor, so we were the ones handling all the day-to-day operations, all the management, all the decisions, and so forth. The self-directed account holders were more passive investors. They were just providing the money. Now, typically, you're going to have multiple partners buying one property. In some syndications, there could be multiple properties, but let's just keep it simple for today. Now, in the hypothetical I just described, I've got 6 different IRA holders with multiple accounts, some of them. We may have up to 12, 13, 15 accounts through Quest, all pooling the capital together to buy this commercial property, in this case, a multifamily apartment complex. Now, the downside to being the IRA holder in this transaction is control. You're not going to have much control because you're not the lead investor. This is a passive investment for you. So your questions that you want to ask is, who has the control? And if it's not me, what control do I have? In other words, how will decisions be made on this project? Another good consideration is the person in control experienced with this type of project? You don't probably want to get into syndications where with your IRA money, where the lead investor is brand new at this type of transaction. That's probably not going to be a suitable investment for your IRA account. You really have a disparity with syndications on the outcome. The returns can be phenomenal on them. I'm invested in syndications at this point where I am a passive. I'm not the lead investor. And a couple of these particular syndications have returned in the 20% ranges in their past deals. So this is a lead investor who is extremely experienced. He could do this type of investment in his sleep, and he has a phenomenal track record. So am I okay giving up control in that scenario? Absolutely. I'm fine giving up control because in this particular asset class, I don't have any experience. This is ground up strip center construction that he does. And we have, my partner and I have invested in this based on this gentleman's experience and his track record. And he's done a phenomenal job for us. So is that a good thing? Absolutely. We're happy with that. Now, I've also seen flops, absolute flops with syndications where they blow up at the end of the day and none of the investors make anything. So they can be great or they can be bad. There is one other consideration on syndications. There may also be the potential for capital calls. Now, what is a capital call? That is a scenario where the syndication or the project itself runs out of capital and they reach out to all the investors on a pro rata basis based on how much of that syndication you own and request a certain amount of money in addition to what you've already invested. So a syndication oftentimes has in the paperwork the ability for the lead investor to call for more capital. Just make sure you're aware of that before you get into one. And also make sure that in your self-directed account, if you're using, let's just hypothetically say your IRA to invest in a syndication, that you have additional funds available in that IRA account should the need arise for a capital call. Oftentimes people will get into these deals and they'll use everything out of their IRA account trying to get it invested, which is great because you don't want that yield leakage. You don't want that money just sitting. But if you do invest every nickel out of that particular account and a capital call comes due, you're not going to be able to make that call. So just something that you definitely want to look at. And then the last strategy we'll talk about is a fund investment. So in a fund, oftentimes these are called private equity funds. In a fund investment, your self-directed account invests in a fund as a limited partner. Again, your IRA or self-directed account is actually owner has an equity position in that fund. Of course, just like a syndication, in a pro rata format. In other words, the person that has the most money in the fund obviously owns the biggest share of the fund. So it's divided pro rata based on the investment in it. Now, in this scenario, it's a little different than a syndication in a couple of ways. The first one and the most obvious one is typically in a fund scenario, you have many investors and multiple assets. So let's look at a hypothetical on this. Well, before I get into the hypothetical, a couple of downsides too. And a couple of upsides. Many funds require the limited partners to be accredited investors by SEC definition. Securities and Exchange Commission is what SEC stands for. A fund is going to be something that is regulated by the SEC federally, and then also on a state level based on the state securities regulation board. Every state has a different title for that, but they are regulated certainly more so than any of the other things that we've talked about. One of the good things about a fund is that often there is a low minimum investment for somebody to get in. So it's something that you could use a smaller self-directed account for to get that money invested. In full disclosure, my partner and I at Investor Loan Source do have two funds. We have the ILS Growth Fund and the ILS Income Fund. And for example, the minimum investment in those funds is $50,000. So if you had $60,000 sitting in your account, that may not be enough money for you to get into a syndication. It may not be enough money for you to do a direct lending deal. Certainly probably isn't going to be enough money to buy a physical asset, but it would be enough for you to get into a fund and get that money invested in a fund and start earning income. One of the other good things about a fund is that it keeps your money working 365 days a year, and there is no yield leakage, none whatsoever. That money is just going to keep going and going and going and making as long as the fund is in existence. Some funds have a time horizon where they are capped, and they have to be disbanded and gotten rid of at a certain period of time. You'll want to know that before you get into the fund. And the fund is going to be governed by a document called a private placement memorandum. You'll hear the term PPM for short. That stands for private placement memorandum. That is where the fund, when it was created, or subsequently, if there are changes made to it, has to document and advertise to its limited partners and potential limited partners how it's going to operate, what it's going to do, what all the potential harm is from the fund. In other words, what's the horrible things that could happen? That's where all the disclosures are made, is in the PPM. Look at a PPM as the equivalent of, in the mutual fund world, a prospectus. Right? In the mutual fund world, you have a prospectus. And in the fund world, in the private equity fund world, you have a private placement memorandum. They both really serve a similar duty. It's to inform a potential investor of all the risks, all the rules, all the things that are going to be going on with that particular investment. Another thing about a private equity fund that I do like is the opportunity for subsequent contribution. So oftentimes, let's say you made this $66,000 investment in a fund out of your IRA account, and that's really all the money that you had in that account. So you're happy. It's all out there. It's all in the street. It's all making money for you and earning a return. But, well, here we are, contribution time comes around again, and you make contributions for this year. Now, how much have you, you're not allowed to contribute huge amounts per year by our definition. So what do you do with that subsequent contribution that you placed in that account? Well, fortunately, most funds allow, if you are already in with a minimum contribution amount, case $50,000, you can also smaller amounts of subsequent contribution. And in our case, our subsequent contribution is $10,000 or more. So it allows you to continually use those small amounts as they stack up in your Quest account and get them invested so that you are not leaking any yield potential. Another thing is most funds provide for diversification among multiple assets within the fund. Particularly our funds invest in notes, real estate notes. And we can invest in different notes through different asset classes, meaning some of them will be single family, some of them might be duplexes, some of them might be small commercial properties. And then we also have the diversity geography-wise. We lend in 18 states, so that provides us a pipeline of notes from a variety of areas so that all of the fund is not invested in one particular location. We think that that diversity makes sense. In a summary, all 5 of these strategies that I've outlined have a place. I have done all of them. In fact, I'm currently doing most of them. And we invest in the fund investing is kind of cool. You know, we own our own private equity funds, but I also invest in other funds outside of our own. I know guys that are excellent at things that I don't know anything about. And because of my network, it provides me an opportunity to meet guys that are phenomenal at certain things. And if I believe in those things and I get to know the guys, the operators, the ones that are running it, I'm certainly going to want to invest in those things because I want diversification as well. I don't want all my eggs in my basket. So I love all these strategies and I do all these strategies. I don't want anybody to go away from this presentation thinking that I'm trying to say one of them is bad or one of them is good, because that's not the case at all. But each one of these strategies does have a particular set of considerations and ramifications. And I just wanted to open your eyes to some of those in each of these strategies so that you can kind of mull it around and say which one of these strategies works best for me right now. I will say some of these strategies are more suitable for beginners in the alternative investment world, and some are better suited for more sophisticated investors, some of us that have been around a while. Some are more suitable for smaller and some more larger self-directed accounts. In each of these five, the main focus really needs to be the operator. Who is responsible for your principal? And who is responsible for your return on your principal? Okay, that still provides no guarantee. There is no guarantee in the alternative investment world, just like there's no guarantee in the mutual fund world, the stock world, the bond world. If we are looking for a guarantee, we have very few options, and most of them are a bank account with an FDIC insignia on it. Okay, but if you look at the operator, and it doesn't matter if it's a syndication, the operator is going to be that lead investor. If you look at a fund, look at the fund managers and see who are these people. Do they have experience? Do they know what they're doing? If you're looking to direct invest or direct lend, look at that borrower that you're looking to lend to. And if you really, really dig down into the person that is running your investment, you're going to really cut a lot of the challenges, to be quite honest. That's the largest number of problems we see is with the actual person running the investment. The last slide. Let's go through a couple of them here. Direct lending, I would say, if I were to summarize each of these, only do that if you're okay owning that asset in your self-directed account. If you're not okay having to foreclose, if you're not okay having to finish that project out and dispose of it, I just don't think that's a suitable investment for you. But if you're okay with all those things, by all means, do that. I think it's a great way to make a great return for your account. Indirect lending, I think this is great for two types of people. A new investor who is new to the alternative investment world and wants to get their feet wet and wants to get started. Or somebody that really wants to be a truly passive investor. In other words, they don't have time to manage anything. They just want to set and forget it. In that case, I think indirect lending or lending to a lending company, such as ours or others, would certainly be a good option. Syndications, I think this is great for a more sophisticated investor or somebody with an intimate relationship with an active participant in a syndication. The other thing I think on syndications is it may require larger investment, and you may want to hold back some of your investment to cover capital calls should they become necessary. And then lastly, fund investing. It's kind of like indirect lending to me. It's great for new investors or the truly passive investor, the guy or gal that just has a full-time job and doesn't investor loan source or us. Feel free to reach out to us and with that, I'll turn it back over to Sarah.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. Really enjoyed that presentation. We do have a couple of questions here before we end. Warren asks, does crowdfunding fit in there somewhere?
Yeah, that's a great question. Crowdfunding, it can fit into fund investing probably better than any. It's just a different type of fund. So yes, that would fall under the fund investing title.
Perfect. Fred asks, what is the typical cost to foreclose on a direct lending fix and flip property? He lives in Texas.
Okay, well, I'm glad you specified Texas, because I was just going to say that will vary from state to state. It'll also currently, in the pandemic environment that we find ourselves in, it will vary from county to county as well. For example, in Harris County, which is where I'm sitting right now, which is in Houston, Texas, we have not been able to foreclose on a property in 11 months. So cost to foreclose would have a lot of things in there. There's the filing fees, but there's also the loss of income for the whole time that it takes you to actually get ownership of the property. And right now in Houston, we have not been able to foreclose for 11 months and counting. We don't know when they're going to open it back up and allow us to do what the Constitution of Texas says that we be able to do. And that is the same way in all the major cities in Texas. Now, in the smaller counties, in the smaller towns, we've been able to foreclose. We might have been down for a month or two back in 2020, but after that, they opened back up to us and allowed us to do what we should be allowed to do.
Perfect. Thanks for answering that one for us. We actually had somebody send in a question to our email, so I'd like to get that one answered. If you're the lender, should I be charging origination fees to the borrower? Can you touch on that?
Well, you know, if you're direct lending, it's a negotiation, right? It's a negotiation between you and your borrower. So I can't say you should or shouldn't. Here's the thing with direct lending. You want to make sure that this is a win-win situation, because you have to leave enough meat on the bone for the borrower to make money, or that borrower isn't going to come back to you for another loan after that project closes out. But at the same time, you want to be fair to your IRA or your self-directed account as well. So it's really a negotiation, whether you charge more in interest or less in fees, or that's really up to you and them. I don't think that I could possibly answer that.
Well, a couple of questions here. Which passive investment, in your opinion, do you think offers the best liquidity?
Say that one more time, Katie.
Which passive investment offers the best liquidity?
That's a great question, because liquidity is not something I even touched on in any of those. And maybe it's something I should add to those slides for future use. I would say the most liquid is going to be probably indirect lending. In other words, lending to a lending company. Or it could also be fund investing, depending on what's called the lockup period on the fund. Our funds that we have at ILS have a 1-year lockup. After that 1 year, you can call all your money or part of your money back at any time. Different funds have different lockup periods, though, and that is based on what the fund is investing in. So, for example, I'm invested as a passive in a fund in Florida that purchases assisted living facilities. The fund owns 7 assisted living facilities right now, and those projects have a time horizon of about 5 to 7 years. So the lockup period on that is 5 years. I can't touch the money for 5 years, but I knew that going into it and was quite comfortable with it. And the return that I expect to see on that fund is indicative of locking my money up for 5 years. So that's a great question, and you certainly want to look at that before investing.
Awesome. We are actually getting quite a few questions coming in now. I'm going to try to answer maybe one or two more. And then if you wouldn't mind giving your contact information as well, so everyone can get in contact with you if they have any additional questions. But this one comes from Fred as well. Doesn't the pandemic foreclosure law apply to owner occupants? In other words, can you foreclose on investors?
That's a great question. And I am typing in the chat my personal email address for anybody that doesn't get their question answered here. Go ahead and take a screenshot of that. So he is right. The moratorium is what he's talking about. Has nothing to do with what we do, which is commercial loans. However, oh, now I'm going to get political and I apologize, but we have county judges of certain ideological persuasion in certain cities or counties that are unilaterally shutting down the foreclosure auctions and making it impossible to foreclose on anything. And that is what has happened in Harris, Travis, and all the other major counties in Texas. So you're right, the moratorium didn't have anything to do with us, but they still got us, and they got us by fiat.
All righty. Well, it is now 1 o'clock here. I know, Tom, you've got to rush off to take care of some other appointments as well. If you guys do have any more questions for Tom, we do have his contact information now here in the chat box. Be sure to send him an email, even if you just want to rack his brain for some more information. He's definitely a wealth of knowledge over there. But thank you, Tom, for joining us. Remember, guys, if you do want to be a part of more webinars, get more education on how you can utilize your self-directed IRA for all these different types of investing strategies, be sure to go to our website, check out our event calendar, get registered for all the free events that we have coming up. And also be sure to go to the networking happy hours. They're a really great resource for meeting other people and finding your next deal. So we will see you guys next time. Thank you again, Tom. Hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Take care. Sarah, they're saying on the chat that they can't see my email. I don't know why.
Just went ahead and posted it again just in case. Can you guys see it now?
There it is. Okay, cool.
Alrighty,
cool. Well, thank you very much, Sarah, for having me on, and I'll see you later.